The Illuminati families are without compassion, void of empathy, and thrive on the horror they inflict. In other words, they have no wisdom and therefore no awareness of their own. They get their power from our reaction to their conjured lies. It's for this reason they're not invincible. We are woven into the veil of deceit. Any reaction, revenge, or resistance gives the elite the excuse they need to push forward. They will fail, of course, because this humanity has had enough. We just won't buy into it anymore, and many folks are gaining a sense of this every day. But our awakening is dopey-eyed at best. But now, humanity is already in a virtual prison by being totally disconnected from reality. Understanding the principal root will allow humanity's return to our original state as the Luciferian agenda collapses. So, why do the elite controllers steer everyone in the wrong path? It's because they believe that mankind, who are foolishly deceived, deserve to be deceived, and they are all profane goyim, that they too have also been deceived. The United States has endured many challenges since having reached its economic peak several decades ago. The wealth generated during the 1940s and 1950s carried the nation through several economic downturns. By the 1970s, much of this excess wealth had been depleted. As America's economic decline was becoming more apparent, the nation's ruling class convinced Washington officials to introduce a series of levers designed to reduce or even reverse the decline. The first lever introduced was the petrodollar in the early 1970s. The next was free trade. This economic pillar of globalization was advocated in the 1980s, but was not pushed through Congress until the early 1990s. Since then, it has spread throughout much of the world. The final lever was the creation of numerous asset bubbles by the Federal Reserve Bank and Wall Street. The Fed's ability to create these bubbles is based largely on the financial attributes of the petrodollar. Irrespective of these gimmicks, the United States currently finds itself in a depression. This depression is in many ways more severe and will be more difficult to escape than that seen during the 1930s. While things might begin to look better in a few years, the United States is likely to proceed through its socio-economic decline until the American empire has been dissolved. America's second Great Depression was triggered by massive Wall Street fraud involving trillions of dollars of grossly overvalued real estate securities. Many of these securities were not worth the paper they were printed on, but were marketed to institutional investors as safe investments. When the house of cards collapsed, an unprecedented financial crisis engulfed the entire world. These predictions were detailed in America's Financial Apocalypse 2 years before the financial crisis. Hundreds of millions of people from around the world suffered the greatest financial loss of their lives as the result of the widespread fraud. Tens of millions of jobs and homes were lost, while trillions of dollars were stolen from pensions, IRAs, and other retirement accounts. Now we see entire nations in Europe being raped. America's modern-day Mafia recruits PhDs in physics, chemistry, engineering, and math. Instead of guns and bullets, they're armed with complex algorithms and computer programs specifically designed to extort money from stock, bond, foreign currency, and commodity markets, robbing the retirement and wealth of millions of people. This massive fraud occurs on a daily basis, yet goes largely undetected. On the rare occasion when securities fraud is detected, a low-level scapegoat most often takes the blame. Meanwhile, the real criminals get away and the entire criminal operation is permitted to continue. As corporate America continues to focus more overseas, there will be little left for most Americans. In coming years, an increasingly higher percentage of the US population will rely on welfare. They will never have the opportunity to contribute to society. They will become the biggest casualties of America's crony capitalism and corporate fascism. Millions of others will work as cashiers and burger flippers while drawing government assistance to supplement their slave wages. Most of the remaining Americans will serve the wealthy as maids, valets, fitness trainers, pet sitters, and nannies. They are not likely to get much of a retirement plan or healthcare benefits. They will struggle to make ends meet. They will work until they are no longer able. If they are lucky, they will die flat broke. Others will die in debt with nothing to leave to their heirs. So long as America's fascist regime remains in power, the best opportunity for upward mobility in the United States will come from white-collar crime. Others will keep playing the lotto, heading to casinos and gambling in the stock market as they desperately search for a way out of the misery created by free trade. The illuminated cabal's plan was simple: corrupt and bribe everyone. Everyone in position of power was chosen to be corruptible or have undesirable backgrounds. Mossad spends years infiltrating and gaining influence in all major parties, so no matter who is in power, they have their hooks in deep with both. The banking industry is run and controlled by criminals. The depth of criminal activity within the banking industry and the lengths that the government will go to conceal the evidence. These banks are at the heart of the New World Order, run by a global elite intent on controlling the rest of the world by putting it into unrepayable debt. They do it by ensuring that everybody is trapped into borrowing money at high interest. Forever after, the interest is paid, and paid again to keep the elite in clover. As soon as the Gaddafi government had been defeated, the globalists put the Libyan National Bank back under Rothschild control. It's also what they're doing to Egypt, which has been trapped into accepting $4.8 billion at interest from the International Monetary Fund. The New World Order has no intention of allowing an Islamic national bank which would issue its own money at no interest. Moreover, those who borrow in dollars have to repay in dollars, and when the time comes, the international financiers crash the currency exchanges, thereby ensuring that the borrowed money becomes unrepayable. The result is that national assets have to be sold at rock-bottom prices to the financiers. At present, Syria has no debt from the IMF. It only has loans from friends such as Russia. It is therefore becoming a target for American and NATO aggression. As also is controlled by Monsanto and the other big international agricultural corporations. Syria has no genetically modified organisms because opposition to GMO is embodied in Syrian law. Syria has laudably resisted the entry of foreign companies. The desire to make everybody the same is really a cunning way of preparing people for enslavement by the global elite and one world government. When Iraq was invaded in 2003, one of the first things the Americans did was to issue the notorious Bremer Orders. Order 81 insisted that Iraqi farmers could not store their own seeds developed over hundreds of years. Instead, they must buy Frankenstein seeds, which have to be bought annually from Frankenstein corporations like Monsanto. These seeds have terminator genes, which ensure that the seeds can only be used for one season. In India, one small farmer commits suicide every half an hour, usually in the very painful way of drinking herbicide. If a crop fails, the small farmers cannot rely on stored seed, but must buy Monsanto seed and borrow it at interest rates of a minimum of 50 to 60% and often 100% or more. Food supply is now another way by which the global elite is coming to control other countries. The world has to get used to the fact that when the Americans get involved, an iron law prevails: pay Monsanto or starve. The powers behind the Muslim Brotherhood, founded by Hassan al-Banna in 1928, reports directly to the CIA. Google. Google is the largest and most secretive. The most dangerous isn't Blackwater or L3 Communication, not even DynCorp. It is Google. You know, the search engine and the folks that run YouTube with all those videos with puppies and kittens? Google beyond borders, beyond the law. Analysts tell us that Google is the operational intelligence and strategic planning agency for the New World Order. Google Earth has photographs of almost every building on Earth, every intersection, every school, and even sells military-grade satellite service in real time to clients who have more than a minor curiosity about those around them. Google reads much of the world's email. Google not only monitors internet searches, they provide the results, steering people to products and ideas they favor and censoring the rest. Google runs YouTube, a site of vast power that has done more to mislead and censor than any other website on the internet, with the exception of Google's other sites, in particular Google News. For a small fee, Google will smear anyone on Earth, guiding internet searches to fee-paid sites on obscure and secretive servers to spread wild conspiracies, bizarre accusations, and defamation. Credible whistleblowing information is disappearing in cyberspace. That's why you should always save good articles and websites. They might not be around later. Like the real whistleblowers of the lottery scam, disappeared. Enslavement. This is the real alchemy that underpins our modern economy. The fact is that money can be and is created out of nothing. But in order for us to have faith that it actually exists, we need to go through some sort of travail in order to achieve it. Human beings instinctively don't believe that something can be created out of nothing. They need to go through the process of work in order to satisfy the logical part of the mind, to make themselves believe that creation has indeed taken place, so the economic system is set up to make that happen. Here's how the scheme works in modern times. A bank can take the money from its depositors' accounts and lend it out to various persons or institutions on interest. It can loan out the vast majority of the money deposited, classically 90%, leaving only a fraction, 10%, in the bank's vaults. This fraction is called the reserve, and it is the only actual money sitting in the bank, backing all the various loans. When the loans are paid back, the bank earns a profit from the interest. Thus the bank has caused its depositors' money to multiply and has kept the difference for itself, essentially creating money out of nothing. In our system, money appears to be created out of nothing, but in reality is being created from something intangible, time. Specifically, human labor measured over time. So what is happening to our youth? We are shackled to the fixed earth like a slave or a captive. Because of this artificial relationship that's been forged between time and money, and because of the magic of fractional reserve lending, money can now be expanded or contracted with time. The global economy has become a gigantic pyramid scheme built for channeling the life energy of the many into the hands of the few. Through an alchemical transmutation process in a giant machine where we work the levers, we produce wealth for them to enjoy. When we work at our jobs, pay our taxes, consume goods and services, deposit our paychecks at the bank, register for selective service, for social security, or for welfare, we are feeding the beast. The true energy source, the true prima materia from which the alchemical gold is produced is, in this instance, our blood, sweat and tears, our youth, and that of our descendants. Our faith in the system is what allows the magical transformation to occur that changes our sacrificed energy into gold for the benefit of our corporate government overlords. We know that we will eventually be consumed in the belly of Moloch, but to stave off that day as long as possible, we throw our babies into the fire as a substitute for the full price that is required of us. It is amazing to think about how much of our economic activity is centered around the old sacrificial customs. In the USA, the fiscal year begins with the harvest in October. But in our present system, money is the real harvest. October is when the Christmas shopping season begins. This is the period when consumer sales, upon which the entire system is dependent, are expected to jump dramatically. Retail businesses operate in the red as a loss all year long, expecting to make it up and go into the black during Christmas season. This is because mothers who feel guilty about being separated from their children by their slave wage job try to make it up by charging up debt they can't afford to buy their kids plastic crap made by child slaves in China. This is an echo of the first Christmas, when the wise men gave gifts to the newborn babe that they knew was destined to be sacrificed. An organization called the Gold Anti-Trust Association has presented evidence that the street price of gold is being purposely manipulated by central banks through the counterfeiting and sale of these gold certificates. It is merely another form of alchemy through flat paper, but in this case it's being done to mask the other form of alchemy, the paper and electronic money being produced by central banks as national currency. Garter has specifically named J.P. Morgan Chase as being heavily involved in the scam, as well as the London Bullion Market Association. This is the organization responsible for fixing the international price of gold and silver each day. Their corporate logo is a half sun in gold combined with a half moon in silver. Their officially quarterly publication is called, can you guess the name? The Alchemist. Garter's revelations have set off a global demand among holders of gold and silver certificates to receive their bullion in hand right now. This is largely what is behind the surge in gold and silver prices that is now occurring at the time of writing. It would be front-page news if it were not for the fact that all hell is breaking loose on every other economic front as well. The civilized world is presently waking up to the fact that the illusion of prosperity experienced by some people over the last few decades came by selling assets for far beyond what they were worth to people who couldn't afford them, saddling them with a debt that they could never repay. These debts were then treated as though they had actual value, just as our treasury debt is treated as though it is gold. Mortgages were chopped up and resold in pieces to new creditors, often multiple creditors at the same time. Now nobody knows who actually owns the paper on those properties anymore, but the debt still exists, a hunger in the banking system that demands to be fed but can never be satisfied. Stocks. 70% of stock market transactions are now created through something called high-frequency trading, where banks use this cheap borrowed money to trade stocks with computers, utilizing algorithms back and forth between each other several times a minute. With this, they're able to actually front-run everyone else's transactions and control the entire market to their own benefit. Not only does it provide them with tremendous profit in a game that is rigged so they can't lose, it also serves to mask the sickness of the economy at large. The global economy, as we know it, is dying. But death in alchemy and in mythology and in reality is a necessary part of the cycle of life, as well as the magical process of transmutation. Only through the death of the present sick system can the earth be fertilized and the true green shoots of prosperity sprout up again. The system will die when we stop feeding it, when we recognize it for the vicious, man-eating beast that it is. We don't know what will replace it, but you can bet it will be a more vicious system with a new face. Gold. When gold was rediscovered after the fall, it was thought to hold the power of the sun gods. Therefore, only kings and rulers were allowed to possess gold, because to possess it, the forbidden fruit, was to be like the gods. Upon the founding of civilizations, it was deemed necessary to keep the people enslaved and ignorant, so that these kings and rulers could feel more special than they really are. This has continued throughout human history even to this day. Since possession of gold by anyone other than kings or rulers was forbidden, a system of money had to be instituted using stone, silver, and bronze to be distributed among the people according to their hierarchical position within society. The forbidden fruit of gold evolved later in the Old Testament as money, which is noted as the root of all evil. From a psychological standpoint, since the concept of money and wealth is nothing more than an illusion, such things as money, greed, and power are nothing more than extensions of fragile egos for those whom seek power to feel like they are more special than others. This is why gold continues to be so valuable. Its value is an illusion. Money is an illusion. It is not necessary even today for the upkeep of humanity. The human species did quite well without it for many years before the fall from grace.